Hi, and welcome back to my review of Giants bobbleheads. So today we'll be taking a look at the buying and selling of bobbleheads and how to evaluate their cost or their value. I did this because recently I was able to make a trade on Craigslist. Someone was offering a autographed Brian Wilson bobblehead. In exchange, they wanted my mint condition JT Snow bobblehead, which I have two of them. So I traded away my JT Snow, and I was able to get a Brian Wilson bobblehead from my new friend Jimmy, who apparently is a big fan of mine on YouTube, and was quite shocked to find out that the guy he's been watching for the last couple months actually lives in the Bay Area and is a huge Giants fan. Surprise, surprise. Hi, Jimmy. In any case, I created a system trying to evaluate the cost value of these bobbleheads, primarily for the main purpose of trading, so that if I had a JT Snow brand new and someone was offering me a autographed Brian Wilson, I had at least a system in place to try to figure out how much these things are worth. Is this thing an equal trade? How do you know that? Would you ever trade, say, a Charlie Brown for a Omar Vizquel? Would you actually do that? Would you trade Charlie Brown for Kirk Reeder back there, which I actually happened to do. I had 3 Charlie Browns. I traded one of them and I got my extra Woody. That's how much I paid for him. Other things such as Omar for, say, Will Clark. Is that a good trade? How do you know? So I created a system, and if you wanted to follow along with the system, I actually posted all the details on my MySpace blog. It kind of looks like this. It's a 2-page document you can print out. It's right on the first blog for September 26th. It's called What is My Bobblehead Worth? And it has all these different questions that you can ask to figure out how much things are worth. So I'll briefly go over it with you. And basically, if you want to figure out how much your bobblehead is worth, you have to understand supply and demand. You have to understand how many of these things were made and whether or not anyone cares that you have it. So to try to figure out, at least for the supply side, you want to ask yourself some fundamental questions about these bobbleheads. First off, you want to ask yourself, what kind of bobblehead do you have? Do you have a player? Do you have a mascot? Or perhaps you have an announcer? These are primarily the 3 different kinds of bobbleheads that exist, as well as the non-player bobbleheads, such as Carlos Santana or Manny Pacquiao. So based on what kind of bobblehead you have, that make a huge difference in the value of your bobblehead. You want to also take a look at how these bobbleheads were given away, and basically how many are there. Omar Vizquel, there's 20,000 of them. It was a regular stadium giveaway. JT Snow here was a rewards card giveaway. So there's only about 3,000 of these in existence. Same thing for the Heritage Night for Lucio for the San Francisco Firefighters Club. Also, probably only 3,000 of these in existence. And there's also examples of, say, Kirk Reeder back here, who was a mail-away promotion. There simply aren't that many. You had to go to the stadium, write down the phone number, the email address of the place that was selling them, send away your $20, and you get a Kirk Reeder. You know, I actually saw this like years and years ago, back 2003. I was not interested in bobbleheads back then, but if I knew that, I would have bought like a dozen of these things, or a couple thousand of them, and I'd be rich by now, because they're all going for at least about $150, $200. In any case, those are things to consider when you look into bobbleheads. And if you use my formula, it'll give you a price estimate for that. The other factor you want to consider is how old your bobblehead is. Bobblehead giveaways from previous years, such as Jason Smith, Omar Vizquel, Moises Alou, from previous years. I think part of it with bobbleheads is the fact that demand diminishes as soon as the player leaves. So even though Jason Smith was a great Giant since 2001 until he left to go sign with that other team 3 years ago, his value actually goes down because out of sight, out of mind. So there's a lot less demand. Moises Alou, he was only a decent Giant. Even when he was here, his bobblehead wasn't worth a lot. So as he's gone away and now retired, his bobblehead is also less in value. The other caveat, exception to that rule is players who were awesome when they were Giants and are still awesome today. So Omar Vizquel, beloved legend, people will still pay a premium because his value apparently only increases over time. Will Clark, also a legend, his value has only gone up in time. The other factor that may increase the value of bobbleheads is the fact that they are inherently fragile. People leave them out. San Francisco, we have earthquakes, they break. You have kids, they break. You have dogs, they break. So the older they are, in theory, the harder they are to get, as well as there's probably less of them around. It's like the paper mache Willie Mays Nodder bobbleheads back in the 1960s that were never designed to last 50 years, and so you can't find a single one of them that's still in good condition. So moving right along here, you also want to think about whether or not you can even find these. So this goes into the supply side idea of bobbleheads, of pricing, right? These are good examples. JT Snow, Woody, and Charlie Brown. You probably can't find them on eBay or Craigslist often. You might have one listing. So you're competing against everyone else who wants to complete their collection. You're going to pay a premium because you either can't find them or it's impossible to find, or if you do find them, you got 50 other people you got to compete against. So you have high demand, low supply, the price increases. So you want to take that into consideration. You also want to take into consideration how popular the player was. It's kind of funny, right? You have Omar, JT Snow, you have Barry Zito, you have examples such as Tim Lincecum, who for whatever reason people are willing to pay anywhere from $75 to $100 for. Although I think it's kind of cool that a lot of people are selling him for $55 because that's what his price on his back is. Same thing with Brian Wilson. A lot of people are selling Brian Wilson for $38. That's kind of cool. Although I don't know, a lot of people are paying $75 for Barry Zito. Although I have seen people pay $99 for him now that he's having a good year. But popularity plays a huge role into it. If you have a popular player, a very popular player, or a guy who has a cult following such as Will Clark in the back there, or Woody, his price goes up just based on popularity, so we want to take that into account. The other factor you want to take into account is performance. You may not believe it, but a lot of times bobbleheads are like stock. When the player doesn't do well, his bobblehead doesn't do well. Basically, you are holding one share of Barry Zito, Z-I-T-O, on the NASDAQ. So 2007-2008, when Barry Zito basically sucked as a Giant, had a fat ERA, was constantly getting chased out of the game in the second inning after giving 6 runs, his bobblehead last year on eBay was only worth about $25. So you couldn't give him away. I listed him 5 times, no one took him. Didn't care. This year, Barry Zito did the P90X with Brian Wilson in the offseason, worked his abs. I don't know what he did. He found his fastball, found his rainball curveball, doing much better. Again, this year, $75, $99. I don't really know why, but part of it is performance. When you're performing well, people care more. The other factor you want to take into account is whether or not your bobblehead makes any noise, right? So, classic examples, John Miller does not talk. Carlos Santana does talk. Rennell Brooks, Moon, also talks. Their bobblehead talks. If your bobblehead talks, it's probably worth a lot more than the one that doesn't. If it still talks, it's worth more than the one where the battery is dead and it doesn't talk. So those are different considerations. As far as I know, Crook and Kite bobbleheads, if they talk or don't talk, are also still worth somewhere in the range of $300 to $400. Because, hey, at the end of the day, you can always change the battery. You just got to go do it. You also want to think about whether or not there's a non-baseball audience for these things. Charlie Brown, I don't care whether you're a Giants fan or not. If you love Charlie Brown, you want this bobblehead. That's why he's worth anywhere from $150, $200, $300. Same thing Carlos Santana. People may not care what the Gigante is. I know Giants fans don't know what Gigante is, but they like Carlos Santana. They're willing to pay $75 to $100 for him just because it's cool, right? The other factor is the condition of your bobblehead. You want to take a good look at your bobblehead. When you're buying a bobblehead or trading for one, you want to ask the seller, what condition is it in? Is it out? Has it been left it there in your cubicle? Has it been collecting dust? Is it in your kitchen collecting grease? Do you smoke? Is there cigarette stains all over it? Is it in the display case? Is it under glass? Is it in your closet? Did you ever take out a box? Are you selling me a new box that's never been opened? So there's different factors you want to ask. And lastly, autographs. Autographs are interesting. Of course, they're basically based on how popular the player is, and there are some factors for that. So the autograph probably add about $25 to it. In any case, I'm running out of time, and that's kind of cool. That's my system for evaluating the cost of a bobblehead. Again, go to my blog on MySpace for Slideball, and you can print out the 2-pager, go down the list, circle the numbers, add it all up. The final price is probably somewhere around 20% based on that, and you can kind of estimate on that. In any case, that's my probably the last blog for the year. Alright, thanks. Go Giants. Bye. We'll get them next year.